Also something I want to point out, I mean, I think 2 years ago in our up-and-comer show, we talked about Carlos Rodríguez and Juan Ayuso as being the two up-and-comers, the two big talents in Spain. And here they are fighting it out on the highest level of the World Tour, right?
Welcome to the Move podcast. This is, I don't know if this is our, I think maybe second time covering Tour of Romandie. Luckily, I have the two brains on here that can dissect this whole thing. And there's some interesting storylines here in this year's Tour of Romandie. And it'll be broken down here by Spencer Martin, who is here. He's in Boulder. No, actually, you're not in Boulder. You're traveling right now. Where are you right now, Spencer?
I'm in Boulder. I got back to Boulder just in time for this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And where were you? You're jet setting around often.
Oh yeah, I was in Paris this week. I just wanted to be on the ground for Romandy, not the same country, but same region. No, I'm kidding. It was just for a personal trip with my wife, and then we went under the Channel to London, had a few meetings, and then flew back here. And with modern technology, you can watch Romandy on the plane, so that was pretty cool.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we have Johan Bernil, who's in Madrid. And I'm curious, what you've spent some time around bike races, because now your son, Christian, is racing. How'd the weekend go with Christian? And what's that like being on the dad's side of bike racing?
It's completely different. It's fun. It's really fun because so it's his first year cadet. So he's 15 now, just starting. But no, it's fun. I mean, these guys, these young kids ride fast, man, really fast. Like I've not seen a race with below 40 kilometers per hour average. And yeah, it was an eventful weekend. You know, yesterday he had mechanical problems, broke his derailleur, so needed to find a replacement for today. And then finally we found a solution. And today he did the Madrid Championships, and he did really well.
Nice. And I won't bore you with my details, but I did hit up a big group ride yesterday where I had to be the oldest by 15 years. Easy. Out of a couple hundred people. It's very humbling, very, very humbling. Hey, before we get into this year's Tour of Romandie, I got to tell you about a couple of our partners. And this is really cool. I think most of you who come to the show, you know Lance's story with testicular cancer. One man every hour, every day is diagnosed with testicular cancer. It is the most common form of cancer among age 15 to 35. With April being National Testicular Cancer Awareness Month, our friends at Manscaped have partnered with the Testicular Cancer Society to spread awareness for men's health and early detection. Visit manscaped.com/TCS and learn how to check yourself, as they say, and for early signs of cancer. And always you can use the promo code WEDO and get 20% off your plus free shipping on your Manscaped kit. That's at manscaped.com/TCS. Today's show also brought to you by a new partner of ours. I'm not sure if you guys got your stuff in the mail yet, but from Cuts. They sent me a pair of pants, which I'm a shorts and jeans person almost entirely. Like I just am hesitant to buy pants, but they sent me a pair and I put them on and it's like, my wife is like, hey, where'd you get those? Those are great. But here's what's really cool about it. That and the t-shirt they sent is they're wrinkle free. How often are you taking a quick trip? Like it sounds like Spencer just took a really, really quick trip. You throw your stuff in your bag, you get to your destination, you pull it out and it looks like crap. It's all wrinkled up and you're spending your time in the hotel ironing it or something like that. It's wrinkle free. Looks great. Fits well. You don't even have to think about it. Give it a try. Check it out. I think you're going to like it as well as I do. I don't like shopping for clothes. I wear swag 90% of the time. They sent me this and I'm already looking online to order some more. 20% off your entire order when you use the code WEDO at checkout. 20% off your order at cutsclothing.com. Again, Cuts, C-U-T-S, clothing.com. And use the promo code WEDO. All right, guys, let's, Johan and Spencer, let's jump into Tour of Romandie. Let's start with, this is going to sound really weird. Let's talk about the pre-race favorites because the outcome in no way whatsoever matched what the pre-race favorites were. In fact, I spent a lot of time online watching this Tour of Romandie, Googling names to learn more about some of these riders. And in fact, if you stick with us through the rest of the show, you're going to learn about some other riders that you maybe have not heard their names before. So Johan, let's start with the pre-race favorites.
Yeah, well, I think we had, the usual suspects. I mean, if you talk about pre-race favorites, to be honest, there's only 3 or 4 who can win, but you normally make a list of 10 that can be contenders, So I had written down, for example, from Team UAE, Juan Ayuso, Adam Yates, Brandon McNulty, then Simon Yates, Carlos Rodriguez, Egan Bernal from Ineos, Vlasov and Hindley from Bora, Richard Carapaz, David Gaudu, Lenny Martinez, Van Wilder, Enric Mas, Theo Gegenhardt. That's 14 names. Curiously, not one single Visma Lease bike in the pre-race favorites, on my list at least, turned out to be true. But yeah, and then usually, when you make a list of favorites, usually some of those favorites wins, and then some of them just fall apart after 2 stages, 3 stages. We never know, if they're in good shape or if they get sick, and that's what happened. But Carlos Rodriguez, who was the leader for Ineos, won the race, and I think he was supported by a very strong Ineos team. I think this is the first time that we really see Ineos in a stage race support the leader and actually finish the job on that level. So that was good to see.
Spencer, you have any thoughts on the pre-race favorites?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm glad I didn't bet on this race, or we didn't do an outcome show on this race, because it's not exactly what I expected. Obviously, Carlos Rodriguez winning, not a huge surprise. But as Johan said, Ineos has not been delivering riders to GC wins with incredible regularity recently, and it's his first GC win of his career. I think we all you remember winning that stage of the Tour, finishing top 5, but I was surprised to see that this is his first GC win of his career. That's a big win, especially going into the summer season and the Tour. I would say some pretty competitive jockeying on his Ineos team to see who's going to have to work for who at that race. So this is a big milestone for him. And then Alexander Vlasov finishing second. Maybe you would guess that, but then Florian Lipowitz finishing third from Bora. I don't think in a million years I would have guessed that. I was really surprised to see him finish third. And then surprised to see some of those pre-race favorites Johan listed not doing so well, like specifically Adam Yates, who won this race last year. If you quizzed me before this race, I would have said Yates is going to win this like easy. It's not even going to be hard for him. So the fact that he was, so far off the pace was surprising to me. And then also Luke Plapp. I thought if Luke Plapp was going to emerge as a GC contender, like a backup option for Bike Exchange, I kind of thought this would be the race. So I was surprised to see him start so well. Like if you would have asked me before the time trial who's going to win, I would have said Plapp, and was surprised to see him kind of not perform that well in the time trial and then crumble in the last few days. And then Juan Ayuso, another, one Tour of the Basque Country, another rider I would have thought to do a little bit better than he did. Anyone can have bad days, and he did have a bad day yesterday, but I was also thinking, how many times have you seen Tadej Pogačar have a bad day at a 1-week stage race? I'm not sure I've ever seen it. So it kind of, makes me wonder what their Tour de France leadership strategy is going to look like.
And before we jump into first the prologue and then each stage, Johan, can you share with us a little bit about Tour of Romandie, where it falls in the calendar, what it means? You're kind of between the classics and the Giro. So what does it mean preparation?
And where is it?
Yeah. Where on? All right. Raise your hand if you Googled on the exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Romandy is the French speaking part of Switzerland, right? Beautiful country. Typical at this season, and at this point in the season, usually it's 2 or 3 times bad weather. I know the Tour of Romandie, many stages have been canceled as soon as they hit the above 1,300 meters. today this year we saw on Col de Mos. Col de Mos is usually one of the climbs that they do, and sometimes it gets cancelled. It's very famous for that. Tour of Romandie is because of its place on the calendar, it's a bit a special race because the Tour de France guys are not really hungry to race yet. To be on a high level. It's a hard stage race, so you have to be in decent shape. And then it just falls after the classics. So some of the guys are finishing their first block of the season. Earlier in I think in the late 90s, early 2000s, it was typically a stage race which was used as a preparation for the Giro. I think something might have shifted in the calendar. I don't know, but nowadays Giro contenders don't use the Tour of Romandie anymore. They use the Tour of the Alps now to as a preparation stage race for the Giro. So it's a bit a special place on the calendar, and that's also why none of the really big names go. With all due respect, all these guys are great riders, but the top 5 big names were not there. Right, and if there's one of those guys there, then it's because something has happened with their schedule that they have to adapt it. But still, it's one of the big stage races, one of the big 1 week stage races. There's 7; they call it the Big 7, so it's one of the Big 7, a part of the 3 Grand Tours. And if you can put that on your palmarès, it's a nice one to win.
All right, and it opens with a prologue, and it's I can't help but think. It is a lot of work for 3 minutes of riding for the riders and the teams. And are you a fan? You say it's a nightmare. Do you like it? Do you favor it in a 1 week stage race?
It's basically it's a rider's presentation.
It's a show.
You're not going to win or lose it there. Well, actually you could, because, ultimately Carlos Rodríguez won with 7 seconds. So it could be, it could be the difference in 2.2 kilometers, but it's, I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of those short. It's nice for the people of that area, of that village, probably, because I don't know where it was, but, and it's nice to present all the riders, but it's a whole day of stress because, you need to wake up in the morning, do the recon, time trial bikes. The staff is stressed. Usually, you have to do the transfer to go and see the recon, and you have to go back to the hotel. Logistically, it's a full day of stress for 2.2 kilometers on the bike, So,
and a lot of risk too. Like anytime you get on a TT bike at World Tour level, there's a lot of risk.
Well, and then it depends on the weather. I don't remember. It wasn't raining, no.
Kind of like threatening to spit. And it was technical, it was right through the middle of town. I was thinking, if you're doing this and you're a GC rider, crashing would be the worst thing that could happen to you.
And then there was the debate also. I think some guy with the debate whether you use a time trial bike or no time trial bike. I think most of the riders did it on a normal bike because of it being so short, being so technical. So yeah, I'm not a fan. But it didn't really have any influence on the outcome of the race, I would say.
Yeah, for a spectator, it's great. Yeah. It's like a party in your city, right? It's like it's same as like having a crit. Like it's just a big show and a big party. Let's move on to stage 1, and
should we call out this guy who won this prologue?
Oh, right. I should mention who won the prologue.
I only make a point to do this because I've never heard of this person before. This has got to be like the highlight of their career.
I've heard of him.
Mikael.
Do you want to say his name?
Mikael Zeilart. His grandfather was a very famous. Michael Zeilart. His dad is also Michael Zeilart. Was also a professional cyclist. He was more of a track rider, a velodrome rider, and then his granddad was the most famous Derny rider. Like, what a Derny is? Like behind motorbikes on the velodrome.
Yeah.
So I rode a lot of 6 days, and I rode a lot behind his granddad on the Derny in the 6 day races. So that's why I followed him a little bit.
Wow.
So I think obviously it is the highlight of his career. But I mean, he's on that team. He's on that TUDOR team. Being non-Swiss, he must have some qualities. Otherwise, he wouldn't be there.
We got 7th at, I don't know if you remember this race, Johan. I hate that I have to say this. Danilith Corsa. Do you remember? It's like this one-day race that Tim Merlier won.
Nokere. Yeah, Nokere.
And it was a serious race, like really good. Startless.
Well, I think he's usually a lead out man for this Dainese and Dainese is on TUDOR now, no?
He is.
Yeah. So he's a lead out guy. He's a lead out guy for the sprinter. So obviously, great result for him.
And TUDOR Pro Cycling Team is sort of like lingering. If you look at the Pro Tour teams and points, they're right on that cusp of where they could move up into like tier 1 or their top tier 2 right now.
Yeah, I think it's a matter of time. It's a company, they're investing. I mean, first of all, for them, TUDOR's a Swiss watch brand. Owned by the team is owned by Fabian Cancellara. They got a wild card for the Giro, mainly because they're sponsoring the Giro. But
let's see how that works.
They're the official timekeeper, like the time of the Giro d'Italia. But yeah, I think that it's a team that's really set its eyes on becoming a world tour team in the next years. The next time that the licenses are going to be attributed is going to be difficult, but they're going to be up there very soon.
Okay, now we jump into stage 1, which was won by Dorian Godon. And this is AG2R. We're going to get, I think the subject of team results is going to come back up here, because we're going to talk about this guy a little bit, but incredible race for this team and this rider. And we'll get to more of that later with the last stage. But again, a name I was like, okay, this isn't a household name that we've brought up in the 7 years that we've been doing this. Mm-hmm. But tell me your thoughts on that. Well, let's start with you, Spencer.
Spencer, you want to go first?
I have a question for Johan on this stage. Pretty interesting stage, like a lot of attacking towards the end. If you just looked at the results, you'd say, oh, bunch sprint, that was pretty boring, but it was exciting. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure Dorian Godon was supposed to be leading out on Andrea Vendrame, his teammate on Decathlon AG2R. But Vendrame makes the decision that I think this is what happened, that like, no one's coming around me, I'm just going to let Godon win because he was the one leading out. Is that, I was just thinking, is that a little risky? Like, what if you just read that wrong and your lead out rider sits up?
I don't know if that's the case. I mean, I would also say Vendrame is, quality wise faster, like higher speed than Godon. Dorian Godon, I mean, it's not the first time he is, last year, for example, he won Flèche Brabançonne, which is a really difficult race in Belgium. Won by Tom Pidcock already, and a lot of good riders. I did not know that. What's his name? Is it Dorian? Dorian, no? Dorian, yes.
Yeah.
I did not know him as such a good sprinter. He's fast, but I didn't see him as winning bunch sprints. And I think this guy must just be all of a sudden on incredible shape. You sometimes it happens that all of a sudden you just arrive and it's, wow, I've never been that strong before. And just everything works. And it's possible that the first day he did the lead out for Vendrame, and either Vendrame decided to, or he just couldn't pass him. That's possible too. And if you can't pass him, it's, the best way to make it look good is you also raise your hands, and say, hey, I'm happy for you. You win. But let me tell you, any professional cyclist that can win a race and he can go for it, he will do it. So I would say Vendrame was, he still finished second in stage 1, but if he would have been able to pass him, he would have.
It kind of made me wonder if they were points harvesting, if this was a premeditated strategy to, instead of lead out rider pulls off, gets 10th, let's get 100 UCI points in one day at a World Tour stage race. and let's focus on going 1-2. Not easy to do, but that team's on fire right now.
They are. I mean, listen, something has shifted within that team, whether it's, it's not AG2R anymore now, it's Decathlon AG2R. Obviously, Decathlon is a big company. Something has changed, over here in Europe, and especially in Spain, they say, well, it's the new bikes, the Van Rijssel bike. Decathlon, I mean, do you guys have Decathlon over there in the US?
Not that I know of.
Okay, well, it's...
You used to have one store, I believe, and they closed it down.
Well, it's what it's comparable to. I mean, it's a huge sportswear, everything that sports related is there. They're all over Europe. I have two big ones here in the 15 kilometers around my house. But anyway, it's known as also, especially for bikes, it's the cheaper bikes. It's like the recreational rider bikes. Nobody who is really an avid cyclist would go and buy a bicycle at Decathlon. Now they've changed this because with this brand Van Rijssel is it's their bike brand owned by Decathlon. And the story is that they wanted to have a really, really competitive bike. So they bought all the bikes from the World Tour. They bought a bike from every brand. They researched it, they analyzed it, and they put everything together, and they designed their own bike based on all the qualities, what they thought were best from all the other brands. And they came up with this new Van Rijssel bike. And I've seen comments of riders, for example, Oliver Nassen, who's already a seasoned professional, said, this bike is amazing. Now you always have to question, whether that's a marketing declaration but let me tell you, I mean, they've won 12 races already this year. And it's, we're only in April. That hasn't happened for a long time with AG2R.
Yeah, I'm looking at the team points, and, I know it's still early, but there's been a lot of racing already. And you sit there and you go, okay, we haven't talked about Decathlon AG2R much this season, but they're ahead, team-wise, ahead of Visma, Quickstep, FDJ, Ineos, Lotto Destiny, Bora. Like they're sitting in fourth place overall points wise. It's pretty remarkable.
Well, I mean, the bike discussion, that's more of a joke, I would say. There's all the bikes are good, right? But obviously they're on a roll. And they must be doing something different than in the past, because they've usually been one of those teams that were like mid-range and below. And now, and you know what? It happens when when you're on a win in a winning mood. You just keep winning and keep winning when things work out. No, of course, we'll see. For them, it's going to be their big exam is the Tour de France for every French team. So, but they have a good team. And they have Ben O'Connor, who started the season really well, and they keep having these guys. They won 2 stages here in Tour of Romandie, and the first one, stage 1, 1, and 2. So I think they're really happy with the way things are going.
I think this is good for us doing the show, but the spectator in general, to see more mid-level teams rising like this. Like we've seen it with Alpecin, and that's been great for us, as a spectator, like pure fan. So maybe we'll see the same thing there. Spencer, why don't you break down stage 2, where we saw Thibau Nys of Little Trek on a breakaway?
Yeah, these stages are very confusing. That prologue, it's like second stage, third stage. What stage?
Right, I know. I had to kind of go back and mark them a bit. Yeah.
One thing we should mention about Decathlon that's unique about that, I think they're totally vertically integrated. So these bikes are made by the store. I guess it would be like REI's house brand, but that's pretty much the whole store. So it is unique that they've developed a bike capable of being on the World Tour so fast. I kind of think it's a little pulls back the curtain on maybe that these big bike brands don't need to charge as much money as they do for the bikes, because this Decathlon bike is a fraction of the price.
Sorry to interrupt.
Oh boy, here we go.
That bike is expensive.
But it's still like half as much as like the top specialized bike.
No, it's expensive. I on purpose. I was in Decathlon a few days ago, and I stopped at the bike section. I checked the prices. I think it's 9 or 10,000 also.
I think a top level specialized is like 18 grand right now.
Oh, that's insane.
I think that's too much.
I don't know where those 8,000 are. That's just not normal. Those prices.
Did they partner with Harley Davidson or something? Like
the lower end Harley is actually cheaper than
right?
Yeah, well, that's another podcast for another day. But so stage 2, summit finish, not overly hard, but anytime you're finishing up a mountain is tough. The early breakaway stays away. So Thibau Nys and Andrea Vendrame were 2 riders that were in the early breakaway. They finished 1-2 on the stage. They're almost caught. The peloton gets close enough that Luke Plapp is sitting in the peloton from Jayco, sprints across. So like he's up there with them. He ends up getting 3rd, going into 3rd on GC, 22 seconds back. And like right then, you think, well, that's big for Plapp because the only riders ahead of him are Thibau Nys and Vendrame from the breakaway. They're not going to figure in the overall GC of the race. So this is now Plapp's race to lose. Little did we know, looking back now, Florian Lipowitz, he's in the peloton as well. He gets 4th. He's 10 seconds behind Plapp. And then Juan Ayuso leads the rest of the peloton home 2 seconds behind Florian. But at the time I was like, I wonder who this Bora guy is. It's kind of an interesting result. Ended up not being a fluke and kind of showed us who was strong for the rest of the race. But behind Ayuso was Carlos Rodriguez, was also in that peloton. It was a small group. Like, let's say, I'm just trying to count now. It's like 17 riders, something like that. So anyone not in that group was immediately out of the GC. Adam Yates was still there. So it still looks like the legacy powers are going to challenge for this race with a Plapp flourish thrown in there. But I mean, this is really like what sticks out to me is Vendrame getting 2nd when he was 2nd the day before on a completely different style of stage. Mm-hmm. And then to get 2nd to come back and be like, I'm going to get in the break and challenge on this uphill finish. Like that continues our conversation about the Decathlon AG2R. Like that shows that team is humming along with a lot of confidence. And then also like Thibau Nys, if you don't know, his dad is Sven Nys, like he was, I would say, probably the best cyclocross rider of all time before Van der Poel and Van Aert came along. Yeah. That's a big win for him. I mean, he's not very old. I'm just going to look up his age right now. I think he's 21. 21, second year pro. So it's a big win.
No, I mean, Thibau Nys is, it must be so difficult to be the son of a legend. I mean, his dad, multiple world champion cyclocross. I mean, I think at this point, I would say Sven Nys is probably, I mean, he will like that if I say that, but maybe not so much. Thibau Nys is going to be better than his dad as an overall rider, because Sven Nys was a cyclocross legend. Thibau Nys is going to be a cycling legend, in my opinion. The guy, you see, he has it. He was already world champion junior cyclocross. He was world champion under 23 cyclocross. He was European champion on the road under 23 2 years ago, I think. As a 19-year-old, so on the road he was already European champion, and he gets into the world tour straight away. Last year he won already a few races, and this was his first year of the season. He did a cyclocross campaign, then stopped after the World Championships, and this was his first race, and straight away he's up there. And the way he won that stage, man, that was pure, like winner's DNA. He knew how to race at the end. I mean, it was I think Vendrame is a bit better uphill than Thibau Nys, but still, he hung on there. And then the way he won the sprint was just phenomenal. And obviously, he's Belgian, so I followed his career a little bit, and he's regarded as being a huge talent. Definitely a winner. Normally when you have guys, when there's 5-6 guys going to the finish for the win, and Thibau Nys is there, 8 times out of 10 he's going to win. He knows how to win races. There's other guys who are super strong and they go 10 times to the finish, they win once. This guy is the opposite. Whenever he's there and he has a chance, 80% of the time he's going to take it.
I have a little homework for you, Johan. I just thought of get some perspective, some insight onto what it's like to be the son of a legend. After the show, I want you to walk into Christian's room and ask him.
He's not the son of a legend. I have to say, though, I think I think dads who have been cyclists, pro cyclists at a certain level, whether you've been a champion or a decent professional, I think it's hard for the boys, for the sons.
Mm-hmm.
We're hard on them. I'm like today, for example, my son, he was, he did a great race. He was 18th out of 150 riders. It's his first year in that category. I'm not going to be. I'm happy for him, but I say, okay, you know what? That's how it should be. You should be at that level. Normally you would say, oh, amazing. I mean, it's great, but I think it's tough. It's tough to be the son of somebody who has done it before. But I think, personally, I think that's the way it should be. You shouldn't be too excited or too, there's a lot of work to do. And,
I think it would be hard because exactly what they need to do and not do.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's not. Listen, I mean, I know one guy. It must have been the hardest position to be in ever as a cyclist. It's Axel Merckx, the son of Eddie Merckx.
Yeah.
Think about that, right?
Yeah.
And he was good.
And he was good. He was good. He was not his dad, but he was good. And I know his dad was hard on him. I mean, a few months ago, I was sitting with Eddie for our podcast, and he said, I was hard and annoying for Axel, but he became a really good professional.
By the way,
for Thibau Nys, it must be. I do think, however, that today's generation, like this guy Thibau Nys, he's super well spoken, great image, looks good, photogenic, says all the right things. This guy doesn't listen to his dad. I'm 100%.
Hey, I have a 22-year-old, and none of these young 20-somethings listen to their dad. Trust me. Hey, before we jump into the next stage, which we're going to get to talk about some American results. Things have really shifted from when we started this show 7 years ago. Before we do that, I do want to tell you about our partners at Helix Sleep. It was a game changer at my house. Went online and took the quiz with Helix about how you sleep, what you like in a mattress. Some people like something really soft. Some people like it more firm. You take the test. Boom, it spits out what you want. I think I ended up with the Helix Elite. And we've been sleeping really, really well in our house ever since then. 15-year manufacturer warranty. And you get the same 100-night trial from everything in the Helix collection. And it's mailed to your door. It's remarkable. I don't know how they do it. That foam just goes into a box. You walk in your house, you open it up, boom, and put it on your bed. And you're up and running in no time. Over 12,000 5-star reviews online. Everybody that uses it is incredibly happy. Helix Sleep is offering up to 20% off all mattress orders and 2 free pillows for our listeners. Go to helixsleep.com/TheMove. One word, TheMove. This is their best offer yet, and it won't last long. With Helix Sleep, better sleep starts now. All right, now, again, we've seen a shift since this show started. When we started 7 years ago, there was definitely a slump in American cycling. And Lance and I talked about it, how things ebb and flow. You don't have heroes on the podium. It doesn't happen. It certainly seems like we're in an upswing with American cyclists getting results. And it's not the first that we've seen Brandon McNulty. And this was, of course, stage 3, the time trial. So we'll start with you on this one, Johan. And again, American cycling, Magnus Sheffield was second, just 13 seconds behind him. Well, although 13 seconds is a lot. This was a big win for Brandon McNulty. Yeah, well,
McNulty, obviously, he's the American champion time trial. We all know the qualities of Brandon McNulty. He's a huge talent. Also, I mean, if you look at the results, almost none of the big favorites were in front because the weather changed. The last 20 or 25 riders had to ride a little bit of rain. But anyways, Brandon McNulty, an amazing time trialist, and 15-kilometer time trial. He was just the best of everybody. I saw an interview of Magnus Sheffield. This kid has amazing power, and the way he was talking about the time trial and the way he explained the pacing strategy and how everything was programmed. And he said, I did exactly what I had to do. And I was behind a little bit in the beginning, and then I made up, like he was riding negative splits, they called it in time trialing. So he was a little bit behind, but on purpose. Magnus Sheffield, I really like that rider. He has so much power. We have not seen the last of that guy. 1-2 for the US in the individual time trial. Unfortunately, none of them were in the game for GC. I think Brandon McNulty going into this race already, he knew that, because let's not forget, Brandon McNulty has been on an extremely high level from the first race. From the first race on, I think he won. I think he won the time trial in Tour of UAE. No, I think he was the first leader there.
Well, then he won Valenciana even before UAE Tour.
He won Valenciana. He was third in Paris-Nice. He won a few other races in Mallorca already. He was on a super high level. So this must also be like the last race of his first block. So I think he came into this race, already on stage 2. I think he was 6 or 7 minutes down. So he had in mind that he would just take it easy, work for the team, and then go full gas for the time trial, which, worked out fine. It's a nice win. And then, I guess UAE, they had first, third, and fourth in the time trial. McNulty, Groschartner, and Ayuso. And Ayuso takes the lead in that race. We all thought Luc Plapp, as Spencer said, Luc Plapp, with that performance on stage 2, coming from the peloton, and he was also talking after the race, like, tomorrow is my day. He is a time trialist. Had a disappointing performance in the time trial, and Ayuso takes the lead, and from there on, I was thinking, okay, this is Ayuso's race. Nobody's going to beat him. Turned out, it was not the case.
Yeah, I also thought it was case closed. Juan is going to walk away with this. I mean, just a few notes from this thing. It is kind of weird. The first two, McNulty and Sheffield, I think they're both here just to work for their team leaders. So a little unusual, you get two guys finishing 1-2 who are just here as domestiques, but you said the weather changed, so that obviously influenced it a lot. If I asked both of you, what type of rider is Magnus Sheffield? Could you tell me? I mean, I have a hard time pinning this down. He got 6th at Tour of Flanders, so clearly like a handy rider in the classics and the cobbles. Seems to also be a great climber, and then also a great time trialist. I don't totally know what type of rider he is at this point.
I don't think he knows it either. No, he hasn't figured it out yet. He's super strong. If you ask me what type of rider he is, as I would say, he's super strong rider.
He's a strong one. It's clear.
But he can time. I would put him in the category of the time trial specialists. He has huge power. And then I think, in terms of racing, he still needs to get a little bit more experience. I would love to see him with a bit more cadence than he's riding right now. He has so much power that he's always like with a low cadence, which I think in the longer races could be beneficial for him if he has a bit higher cadence. But he's not doing bad. I mean, if you're 6th in the Tour of Flanders, you have an engine. This guy also won Flèche Brabançon, I think 2 or 3 years ago. The race that Darion Godon won.
It looks like he's slated to do the Giro, so he's tuning up with this. Looks like he's on form. What could we see in the Giro? A stage win, maybe, or that would be his goal, or?
Well, yeah, but if you're on Ineos, and we know that Geraint Thomas is going to want to go for GC, so he's gonna have to work a lot, but he could win a stage for sure. I mean, this guy has a stage win of the Giro in his legs, no doubt.
Yeah, I definitely think so. And Ineos went to the Vuelta last year to work for Geraint Thomas, and then that didn't work out. And then it's like, okay, who can win a stage? So you never really know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
kind of another interesting thing, like UAE is just dominating these time trials at these 1 week stage races. Like if you think back to UAE Tour, Paris-Nice, looking like they're in pole position coming out of these time trials, and then it doesn't work out. I think that is something to keep an eye on. But then the big takeaway from this time trial, it's kind of boring. This is a real dad take of like every shot's a game-winning shot. Carlos Rodriguez gets 7th here, wins the race right here on this stage. The fact that he finished, I believe it was 23 seconds up on Florian Lipowitz, finished 2 seconds up on Alexander Vlasov, wins the race by 7 seconds overall. Like this was the race winning performance for Rodriguez, but we didn't know it at the time.
Yeah. Well, any time trial, any time trial, you need to, every second is a second, even the prologue. Yeah. And if you lose in 2.2 kilometers, you lose 5-6 seconds, that could be winning or losing the whole race, I think Bernal lost, I think 13 seconds or something in the prologue. So a race like this usually is won by seconds.
All right, we'll jump on to stage 4. I think it was just the last race we covered, or maybe the one before that. I remember watching that race and going, maybe it was Liège, and going, hey, is Carapaz coming back? We had some floundering years there. It seemed to be a rising star early on, and he's looking good again and picked up the stage win on stage 4. We'll start with you, Spencer. Your thoughts?
Yeah, this is a good stage win. So he attacked, I guess, 2.2K from the finish. I mean, this was the hardest. I believe this was the hardest climb. It's like almost a 14-kilometer final climb at 6%, especially this time of year. That's an extremely long climb just to be even able to do with the snow. So he attacks. He looks so strong when he goes. I thought it was game over, and I honestly thought he was going to win the overall because he was taking so much time so fast on the rest. Juan Ayuso has been dropped. Looked pretty bad. You could tell from, even 10K out, like, Juan Ayuso doesn't look that good. But then this chase group with Florian Lipowitz and Carlos Rodriguez come after him. And I don't think I have not seen someone close on Carapaz as fast as I've seen Lipowitz close. Or I don't think I've ever seen someone close on someone that I thought was going to easily win a mountaintop stage as I saw Lipowitz close on Carapaz. He came so fast from behind. If he would have launched 3 seconds earlier, he would have won this stage. Carapaz hung on by like the skin of his teeth to win this. Same time as Lipowitz, and then Carlos Rodriguez finishes 10th or 3rd, 10 seconds back. Again, this is like a key building block towards his overall win because he goes into first overall. 7 seconds in front of Vlasov and 9 seconds in front of Lipowitz and 21 seconds in front of Ayuso, who fell out of the leader's jersey right here. But it was good to see Carapaz back. And I'm trying to look up the last, big result he had, that wasn't the Tour of Colombia. But Johan, you mentioned, you're like, before the race, I thought, he would be like a pre-race favorite. And that sounds right. And that sounds like it makes sense. But the last stage race he won was 2021?
Well, I think his last big result on like the World Tour level was stage 20 in the Tour of Spain 2 years ago. I think he won 3 stages then. Carapaz, it's going to be, for Carapaz, it's always going to be difficult to win a stage race like this because his time trialing is just not good enough. No, I think he lost over a minute in the time trial. On 5 days of racing with no huge climbs where you can take big differences, it's going to be difficult for him to win. So he showed that he's definitely, a racer, a winner. When he attacks, his attacks are spectacular. I have to say though, the Latin American fans of Carapaz are not going to like this, but Carapaz is a rider. He looks a lot faster than he is.
Yes.
I know a couple guys
totally
like
agree
that.
with this.
Like when he attacks, his body language is so spectacular. They say, wow, he is, because, he has this way of moving and like he's pushing the pedals. But then you see he's not going that fast.
It's like Thibaut Pinot. It's
the same thing.
Yeah.
So he looks very spectacular. And And on the other hand, for example, if you see Carlos Rodriguez, it's the opposite. Carlos Rodriguez in Flemish, there's a saying it's called. We say he's a false slow guy, like a fake slow. You know, he
What's
looks.
What's the term?
Valse trage.
Can we learn a Flemish phrase every show? I would love
valse trage. A false slow guy, a fake slow guy, meaning he looks like, he's not moving on the bike. He's it's just his legs that are turning. He looks like, but he's efficient, It's two opposite riders, Carapaz and Carlos Rodriguez.
Well, you make a good point that I didn't pick up on when I was watching it. Had he not lost a minute in the time trial, they wouldn't have given him that gap.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Well, I mean, okay. They were also on the limit. But I have to say, something we didn't comment on. Stage 4, amazing job of Team Ineos. They came into this stage with a plan. They knew that Carlos Rodriguez was their leader, and the team did an amazing job during the whole stage. And then on the last climb, we had Spanish guy. I always forget his name. The time trialist. Castroviejo set an amazing tempo. Then Arendsman, and then Bernal. When Bernal took over, that was like the big selection, and there you could see that they had a clear plan, because Bernal took over and he got a gap. And as soon as they saw that Ayuso was, I've seen some comments on social media saying that, Carlos Rodriguez chased down Egan Bernal, which is absolutely not true. Their plan was to race for Carlos Rodriguez. When Bernal took over, and he went so fast that he got a gap. But straight away, Carlos Rodriguez looked to the right. He saw Ayuso in trouble and talking on the radio, and he just went after Bernal, and that was the winning move. That was the winning move of the race, because also something I want to point out. I mean, I think 2 years ago in our Up and Comer show, we talked about Carlos Rodriguez and Juan Ayuso as being the two up and comers, the two big talents in Spain. And here they are fighting it out on the highest level of the World Tour, right? But stage 4 was, I think, the first time this year that we see Ineos in a stage race of that level, doing what they do and actually getting the result that they wanted. And so I think that's really nice to see.
Yeah, Johan, yes, it is a rare. I doubted them. I saw them leading this out and thought, what is Ineos up to? Like, they're just going to lead another rider to a GC stage win by setting the pace. But clearly, as you say, they had a plan to crack Ayuso, and it worked. Like, it worked exactly right. It was really impressive to watch.
Yeah, and also, nice to see Egan Bernal back at that level. I think. I personally think this guy has the form. He's improving every stage race. He's still at this point that he actually wants to sacrifice his chances for teammates, but I think at some point it'll have to change, and he needs to get back into the mindset of being the leader of the team, because he's won the Tour, he's won the Giro. Not a lot of people can say that. And he's back at a really, really good level. So I think it's now a matter of pure confidence for him. But the way if you look at Bernal's performance on stage 4, he leads it out. He sets the tempo. Then he obviously, when they attack, he has to recover a little bit, but he still comes back. I think he still finishes 5th or 6th on the stage. Actually drops Ayuso at the final of the stage. So he must be in really good condition. We saw him performing really well also in Liège-Bastogne-Liège. It's the first time he participated in that race, and I'm hopeful for Bernal. I think they have not decided yet on his program, but I would be extremely surprised if he doesn't go to the Tour. I think he has to go to the Tour as one of the co-leaders of the team, being
I don't know. Well, do you think he's better than Carlos Rodriguez? I think he has the same problem as Carapaz with the time trialing.
Yeah, probably. But listen, he's a racehorse, man. He's the guy has qualities.
But they can't have 5 leaders because Thomas says he's leading, Pidcock says he's leading.
They shouldn't.
Rodriguez is going to lead, and then
they can have 3 leaders. That's fine.
Then they'll have 4 with Bernal, and probably
Pidcock is not going to be the leader of the team. Pidcock is not. I mean,
he said that he plans on riding for GC.
I think Pidcock needs to decide what he wants to do. Whether he wants to be a cyclocross rider, a mountain biker, a road racer. I mean, you can't have it all. You can't be the leader of the team if you don't know what you're going to focus on. The guy has qualities, but he has never finished top 5 in a Grand Tour. These other guys, yes. Rodriguez has finished 4th or 5th, I guess, in the Tour. The other 2 are Grand Tour winners and the Tour de France winners. So
yeah, Rodriguez got 5th in 23. Yeah, just last year he got 5th.
Yeah,
I think Rodriguez is currently their best GC option because he can time trial and climb, and he's getting better.
Well, Bernal is. I'm a Bernal fan, obviously. I also like Carlos Rodriguez, but I'd love to see Bernal back at the forefront. I mean, he deserves it. The guy's working really hard, and I think Bernal needs to. His aim needs to be. I mean, you're going to say I'm crazy, Spencer, but I think top 5 in the Tour is possible for Bernal. Top 5.
Well, especially with all the top guys shakeup we've had with injuries, really opens up the podium for this year's Tour de France, right?
Yeah, let's just say something happened to Pogačar, Vingegaard's not there. Top 5 is probably open. You even look who was lurking. Even
with Pogačar at full potential, he can still be top 5. I mean, who is better than Bernal?
Carlos Rodriguez.
in this race, but not necessarily all the time.
I would normally say Adam Yates, but I mean, if Adam Yates isn't who he was last year, it does start to open up a little bit. I mean, Enric Mas. Is Enric Mas better than Egan Bernal? I don't know. I don't know if I would feel confident.
In my opinion, he's not.
I think that's
fair. But Enric Mas, if you look at Enric Mas, for example, Enric Mas, we haven't seen him from the whole race here. He's 6th in GC, right?
Yeah. So, what do they call that? A la Zubeldia? You're not seen on camera, but you finish in the top 10.
It's funny when I read a lot of the comments. Some people get frustrated when it's classic season and we're talking about the Tour. If you haven't been listening to this show for the last 7 years, we always bring it back to the Tour. Always. And we probably always will.
Yeah, but cycling is the Tour. And unfortunately, it's the most important race. So,
and this is a weird race because it's essentially a Tour de France positioning race in April.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to the Giro if you're doing this. So this is people trying to prove within their own team that they can lead at the Tour.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. Now, stage 5. Again, we've already talked about this guy, Dorian Godon, AG2R. Another 2 wins in the stage, in the stage race. That's huge. We'll start with you breaking this, analyzing this, Johan. It was a strange finish, and it seemed like most of the people up front weren't real knowledgeable of how this was going to shake out. And maybe he did more course recon because it was it wasn't a straight in finish, and it was odd, and he just got away a little bit.
Yeah, but also you have to add to that there were no big sprinters in this race, right? Like the real sprinter, and some of them were. I mean, I would have to look at the start list before the race, but some of them probably already pulled out. So, and Godon seems to be on a roll, man. He's in that. I think he's in that window of 3-4 weeks where he has diamond legs. They call it like diamonds in the legs. It's like everything works.
And the Flemish for that is.
Diamond legs.
I keep wanting to learn these phrases.
But again, I'm surprised to see Dorian Godon win bunch sprints, but and I think the first guy who will be surprised will be himself. So yeah, I mean, 2 stage wins for him, 2 stage wins in for AG2R Decathlon in the same stage race. I think they're going to be going home very, very happy.
it wasn't like a traditional, to me, it kind of felt like a strongman win.
That's the kind of rider he is. Yeah.
Yeah. Cause it was such a hard stage. It was so chaotic. And it was 3 hours and 22 minutes. Like, but it was long, 150K. Like it was just brutal all day. And you couldn't really, I think it was hard for spectators because it was cold and rainy and they all had these rain jackets on. It was probably somewhat hard for them to know, well, who's in because the breakaway gets caught and groups are going away. But if you're Ineos, you don't know who is who, and you kind of have to close everything down because you can't let someone slip up the road and take the GC because it was so the margins were so small coming into the final stage. So it was just like a hard final 30K really. And then Johan just, it looked like he was in the big chain ring and no one else was in the big chain ring. Like he was just flying through that final straightaway.
Yeah.
All right. Any final thoughts on Romandy for you guys? And I mean, because next up is our Giro preview, believe it or not.
Final thoughts. I mean, I think it's nice to see if Carlos Rodríguez finally win a big race, GC. That's obviously a confirmation of his qualities. Then, if you look at the picture behind me, second and third for Bora, that's obviously a really good result. Without having Roglic there, still, 2/3 of the podium. That's not bad. And also one guy. I mean, we haven't seen him a lot, but still, top 10 for Theo Gegenhardt, 9th place in GC, pretty solid ride. He comes back from a big injury after last year's crash in the Giro. Big leg fracture and hard way back to recovery. So seeing him up there again is obviously very hopeful also for the rest of the season for him.
The other 9th and 10th in GC, Bernal and Gegenhardt. Gegenhardt is my version of Bernal. To Johan's Bernal, it's my Gegenhardt. Like that's someone I really think.
Well, and he is a regular listener of the show. So
hey,
yeah. Hey, what's up? How are you?
I didn't know that. Oh, weird. No, I think he is a lot of class, and that is someone to like the shark lurking below the surface. Like if things open up at the Tour, I would not be surprised if he finishes on the podium if he can come in healthy.
Well, podium is probably a big ask, but I think for him, having solid rides like this is obviously little steps back to where he was. I mean, he won the Giro d'Italia. If you have to be a damn good bike rider to win a Grand Tour,
and some of his power numbers for that were good, like elite.
Yeah, really good. So yeah, I mean, I think that's it. I have not much else to add of you, Spencer.
Yeah, two little tidbits. Did you guys catch this time trial kind of subplot where Giant does not make a disc brake time trial bike? So originally when I saw Plapp struggle, I was like, oh wow, he had to do the time trial course on rim brakes. No wonder he did so poorly. But apparently they have them on like prototype disc brake TT bikes, and you kind of wonder like how much time have they had on these prototypes? If that was one of the first times they've ridden it in a race and it's in the rain at Romandy, like that's not setting them up for success. That seems like that'd be tough. So
yeah, I think it's I was surprised to see that also. Then when I read about it, I didn't know that Giant was one of the 2 or 3 brands left that hadn't shifted to disc brakes on their time trial bikes. This was the first time actually that a rider rode on a Giant time trial bike with disc brakes. The rest of the team did not. If you look at Simon Yates, for example, in the time trial, he rode on rim brakes, still on the old model. So this is a prototype. I personally don't think it had an influence on his performance. He was all excited about it. He had a new bike, new helmet. He's a time trial geek. I would say. He's a specialist time trialist. So he was all hyped up, and I don't think the new bike was the reason for his. I wouldn't say it was a bad performance. He was still top 10 in the time trial. I think he was like 33 seconds down or something. Right?
Let me double check that. He was. Are we doing Luke Plapp?
Yeah.
He was 58 seconds down.
Oh, okay. That's not good. Well, I mean,
33 seconds down would have been like what he was probably hoping for.
Well, he did also ride in the rain. So I think he was about 30 seconds down on Ayuso.
Rodríguez.
On Ayuso, yeah.
I can't believe there's people out there in the rain on carbon, like a carbon disc brake time trial bike. That seems like such a big disadvantage. Or carbon rim brake time trial bike. That seems like, I think I think the Bianchis are all rim brakes.
What's that?
I think Bianchi is still rim brakes on the time trial bikes.
Yeah,
seems really. They just gave up after the final stage of the 2020 tour. We're done with time trial, so we don't ever want to think about it.
I don't know, but well, I mean, for certain brands, I mean, I'm a bit surprised about Giant though. That was a surprise for me because they're a world leader in bike brands, right? For Bianchi, I think it's I don't know a lot of people, if they're going to buy a time trial bike, they're going to buy Bianchi time trial bike. So it's a big, I mean, it's not a market for them. They have to have them because they sponsor a professional team. But, after so many years, listen, you should have disc brakes on all your bikes. That's just, I was surprised to see that.
Like when in 99, you guys didn't use a Trek time trial bike. Like, I'm surprised that doesn't happen more often. That it's like
that was one of those things back then. That was just kind of a mystery. What bike is that? Right? Wasn't that kind of a big story?
It was a Lightspeed.
Yeah. And it looked like it. If you go look at the photo, there was
absolutely no intention to camouflage it. It was a Lightspeed, plain blue with Trek stickers on them. That was it.
It's not a bad strategy for the brand because they save a lot of money on developing a time trial bike that nobody's going to buy, but they still get some publicity from it. I don't hate that strategy.
Is that part of? Well, I'm sure they all do it now, but was that ever part of the deal? If you are a bike sponsor on a World Tour team, you have to produce a time trial bike, or no? Could they technically ride whatever they want? You guys did it.
Well, I mean, Trek made time trial bikes back. They just were not very good at back then. They've come a long way since, yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, no. Normally, listen, the bike brands nowadays they're just top of the game, all of them, So yeah, it was not until I read that article that I realized that there were still brands out there who didn't have time trial bikes with disc brakes. But then again, in a race like in a time trial like this, when it was wet and some tricky descents, but you don't brake that much in a time trial,
Yeah, that's a good point.
So I don't think it's a big disadvantage.
And then my last just thought experiment I had. So Bora, great race for them. I love Bora. I'm a Bora fanboy. So they're rebranding as Red Bull. Red Bull owns 51% of the team. So they're going to be like Team Red Bull, Bora, Hansgrohe. No one's going to say those last two sponsors anymore after that happens at the Tour. How the heck does this work so like Tom Pidcock, Wout van Aert are racing in Red Bull helmets, and then there's a team with Red Bull kits, and they have the same sponsors. And like, what's the stop? I'm not saying this would happen, but let's just say Primož Roglič, sitting first overall at the Tour, needs a little bit of help. What's to stop Red Bull from phoning up Wout and Tom Pidcock and saying, hey, you're renegotiating your Red Bull deal next year. It would really mean a lot to us if you give us a little bit of pull on this coming stage. I'm surprised this is allowed, Johan.
Well, I mean, the Red Bull is sponsoring one team, and then the rest is private sponsorship, right? And I mean, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's only Van Aert on the road. I think Pidcock is only in cyclocross with a Red Bull helmet. I think on the road he's with an Ineos helmet. I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Man, no,
I'm pretty sure.
Sending me into a
I'm pretty sure. Look at the pictures of Amstel Gold Race. He's on an Ineos. He's not in Red Bull.
Okay.
Right? I love how you generate.
And that's totally separate. And that money that goes into a separate cyclocross bank account. I mean, okay. Whatever they make from their team is going to be 10, 20-fold of what they make from Red Bull in private sponsorship. So I don't think unless
Well, unless Red Bull says, "Hey, here, here's so much," but
they took him race for our team next year.
You're part of. I mean, there are rumors that in Belgium, for example, there's been rumors that Van Aert would go and Van Aert and I don't know about Remco actually, if he's in negotiation with Red Bull for.
I heard this too about Remco.
Yeah, but anyways, those are rumors. That's the rumor mill on social media and YouTubers and stuff like that. And, you know what I mean, Spencer.
No, I suggest we launch a new show called Hypothetical Drama with Spencer Martin.
I just find it so strange. And I read the UCI rules. They've actually forbid this. Like a team sponsor cannot sponsor. But of course, in like wonderful UCI language, it's so vague that it could always be wiggled out of. It's like it can't sponsor a rider and a team if it presents a conflict of interest. But a good attorney could argue against that probably.
Yeah.
Or sometimes they make them change their jersey colors for one race, things like that, because it's confusing. This is similar.
Yeah. But imagine if like Jonas was like, "Oh, I have Ineos as a personal sponsor," but that doesn't, that's not weird. That's pretty weird, actually.
Yeah, well, that's not I don't think it's gonna be any. Well, I think we should do a show like that. Like Spencer comes up with drama, and I'm gonna debunk it.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Or we at least incorporate it in all these shows when we can, because it's really good. Speaking of new bikes, if you're in the market for one that does work really well with disc brakes, the Ventum NS1, which we've all been rocking, they're going to give away one of these after the Giro. So that's very, very soon. Within the next month, we're going to give away a brand new NS1 road bike. If you'd like to register, it doesn't cost you a thing. You could go into the drawing, go to ventumracing.com/the-move. All right. The campaign runs until May 26th at the end of the Giro. A couple other things that are very important. You mentioned it earlier on the show. Johan sat down with Eddie Merckx. It is on YouTube. It is not in this audio feed. I mean, our listenership is far exceeds just the viewership of YouTube. So a lot of you listen to the show and maybe don't know if you're not a YouTube watcher. And the reason it lives on YouTube is because, it needed the English subtitles, right? And so if you want to go catch that interview, it is well worth it. While you're there, you can catch the Bernard Hinault interview. I mean, Johan's been working hard this spring, and it's very, very good stuff. I mean, how often do either of those riders sit down for interviews in the last decade?
Not much at
all.
Yeah.
It's very, very good stuff. If you enjoy the show, like and subscribe. We appreciate you tuning in. I know there's a lot of places to get your race recap. I personally think we got the best couple of brains possible here evaluating Tour of Romandie for us. So thank you very much, Johan, Spencer. Appreciate you guys. We will be back on Friday for a Giro preview. All right, we'll see you then.
See you then.
Thanks. See ya.